welcome everybody to our 2016 City Council Candidates Forum. I think we have just an outstanding turnout this morning. I know it's always a little challenging to start the day a little bit earlier, and I hear the traffic this morning was interesting. So I guess when we talk or hear about some of the questions today, we'll see that Walnut Creek has a lot of quality type problems, and that we're very fortunate to have. And certainly traffic is one symbol of a very robust economy. I also appreciate you all coming out on this national holiday. You might not have noticed this is National iPhone Upgrade Day, so I'm pleased to see you're not standing in front of the iPhone store or downloading. If you could hold the downloading until after the candidates speak, that would be much appreciated. And today we have the Walnut Creek TV presenting or recording our presentations, and that will be aired several times between now and Election Day, and the dates will be on the Walnut Creek website. So if you want to go there after the meeting, you'll see, I think there's 6 or 7 dates that have been set aside to replay this event today. This forum is brought to you by the Walnut Creek Chamber of Commerce. Jay tells me that we've been doing this for 25, 26 years, so it's become part of the Walnut Creek political institution, if you will, and it's always a well-attended event, probably because the price is right, but I think also we have a very engaged community, and people really want to find out what's going on. Also, this is part of the Chamber Wall Pack, so the Chamber sponsors and coordinates a political action committee to address issues that are of concern to the business community and the commercial health of Walnut Creek. So that's also a committee that's been in place for many years. Our candidates are seated in random order that was established by the luck of the draw. We will begin by providing each candidate with up to 2 minutes to give us their opening comments. Following that, I will be asking a variety of questions to each of the candidates. The candidates will be given specific time limits for their responses, ranging from 30 seconds to 1.5 minutes. Depending on the question, our friendly timer, Angela, can you raise your, yeah. Angela's a very nice person, but she has a mean streak, so don't annoy her. And she will be holding up red cards and yellow cards. 15 seconds, and the stop sign. Yes. And we've scheduled a block of time at the end of the forum for candidates to respond to questions from the audience. So we would certainly encourage you, there's cards on your table. Fill those out as you go through the morning's activities. And there'll be some chamber staff running around the room towards the end of the presentation to pick up your cards, and we'll address those to the candidates at the end of the forum. Okay, so let's get started. So we have, each candidate will have 2 minutes to do a self-introduction and to introduce themselves to the audience. So with that, we'll start with Justin.
Good morning, everybody. For those of you that I have not met, my name is Justin Wedel, and I'm running for my 2nd term on the Walnut Creek City Council. I usually don't like to open these things up with apologies, but today I will. I'm a little sick. I promise you it is not pneumonia. And if my fellow candidates will agree, I too will release my health records. Now, almost 4 years ago today, I was up here on the stage for the same event, which I think is the unofficial kickoff for all council campaigns. And during my successful run in 2012, I made a promise I promise for a principled platform based off a strong business environment, strong fiscal policies, public safety, and protecting our quality of life and related programs, all of which I've delivered on. Today, I am certain that you'll hear about all the numerous activities and things that, as a team, our council have achieved over the last 4 years. These range from maintaining a fully staffed police department to implementing a parking management program and approving many of the major developments that you see going on in Walnut Creek, including the Orchards and Broadway Plaza. During my tenure, we have all, as a council team, continued to preserve our quality of life and related programs, and this includes our library hours and expanding our open space. As a council, we have successfully come together around these core values. Yet, I alone have taken a leadership role on many issues that have broad and vast implications to our community, the businesses of Walnut Creek, and the Walnut Creek Chamber of Commerce. Specifically, amongst others, I have successfully defeated a tax measure or proposed tax measure here in Walnut Creek twice in the last 4 years. And I lobbied against the unnecessary removal of the conditional use permit process for residential development. I've also pushed to implement at a city level commonsensical budget and spending processes that I'm sure many of you in this room have implemented in your businesses, much like I have implemented in mine. I'm the only person on this stage that has taken leadership around these opportunities for improvement. I look forward to answering the questions of the business community today and discussing what I've accomplished in the last 4 years, and hopefully with your support, what I will accomplish over the next 4.
Thank you. Kevin?
Good morning, Walnut Creek. Well, I'm running for City Council because having lived in Walnut Creek for over 30 years, I have the experience and the commitment that it takes to help Walnut Creek look toward the future. As an internet business executive, having gotten through this recession, I understand the bottom line. In addition to working for several Fortune 500 companies, major technology companies, I've also successfully started 2 businesses, and through sound fiscal management and responsibility, have ensured profitability throughout my career. As a parent of kids in our local schools, I understand the commitment that Walnut Creek has towards excellent education and safety for our children. And as an 8-year transportation commissioner, I know we can do more to improve traffic on our major roads and our downtown parking. As a 12-year youth sports coach, I understand how important it is for the health of our children and people of all ages, and understanding that we need to rebuild our ball fields and improve our tennis courts and rebuild our swimming pools. As a parent of a college student, I know how we need to continue to look for housing that's affordable for younger families while preserving the sanctity of our neighborhoods and ensuring that we have enough jobs so that our children have a place to come back to. And as the son of 2 parents who still live in Walnut Creek and are sitting right here, that our aging population has a robust senior center and senior services. It's going to take dedication, experience, and commitment to see this through, and I welcome the opportunity to help bring this to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Bob?
Thank you, Scott, and good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here, and thanks to the Chamber for hosting this event that really gives the public an opportunity to hear from the candidates that are seeking election to the City Council. I'm going to go back a little further in time. When I ran for office in 2008, we knew that the economy was softening, but we did not know at that time that we were entering the worst recession in our lifetime. Instead of thinking about all the great things we could accomplish, we spent the next 4 years cutting the budget. We cut salaries, or we cut employees, we reduced employees, we managed to restructure the employee pensions, and we cut services. The net effect is that in that first term, we put into place the fiscal framework that today I believe is principally responsible for, with the improvement of the economy, the fact that we have a projected budget surplus for the next 2 years. Notwithstanding that dire fiscal situation, we still accomplished a lot. We opened a brand new library and maintained library hours. We acquired 23 acres at the top of Akalani's Ridge. We maintained the free ride trolley as free to riders, and we continue to support school crossing guards and crisis counselors. And through the urging of then Mayor Silva, we started the Community Service Day as a tremendously successful community project. My first vote on council involved Neiman Marcus. The prior council had approved a building for that site. There was a petition, and we had to take a step back in order to move forward. So my first vote was actually to repeal something the prior council had approved. But what happened was a very successful 2-year effort by the Yes for Walnut Creek campaign, and we now have Neiman Marcus in our town. We also made the decision in that council that we were going to sell a surface parking lot at Mount Diablo in Maine, which is now a tremendously beautiful addition to our downtown. I look forward to answering and responding to all your questions, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Bob. Loella?
Good morning, everybody, and it is nice to see all these bright and shiny faces. So, as mayor, my theme this year has been Walnut Creek Works, and it was chosen very carefully because there are so many components that go into making what Walnut Creek is today. We had prior year visionaries on councils who made choices that may have seemed a little strange at the time they made them, but have turned out to unite our city and make it the wonderful place it is. We have a lot of staff. We have a huge, let me start that sentence again. We have a hugely wonderful staff who stayed with us through the tough times and now are being really loyal and working competently and making Walnut Creek the special place it is. We have a group of volunteers who put together through faith-based organization or school support volunteers, a wonderful community and support our citizens. And last but not least, we just have really good citizens. Everybody seems to care about what happens to Walnut Creek. That inspires me and has inspired me for the last 4 years, and I hope will continue to inspire me as we go forward into the next 4 years. Thank you all for what you do to make Walnut Creek a better place, and I hope to represent you well in that next coming years.
Thank you very much. And continuing the introductions, I realized I hadn't introduced myself. I'm Scott Butler. I'm Vice President of R&D, Quality, and Operations Services with Del Monte Foods in the Shadelands. We may talk about the Shadelands a little bit this morning, but looking forward to the discussion and wondering how I ended up getting up here, but we'll talk about that later. We're going to start the lightning round, if you will. These are going to be questions to each one of the candidates, and we'll adjust the order as we go through this so everyone has a chance to lead first and finish last. And these are 1-minute answers, if you will. So we'll start with the first one, and that is with Kevin. All right? Kevin. In a recent survey of the business community conducted by the Chamber, the city budget was perceived as one of the most important issues facing the city. Do you agree? And if so, what are your concerns?
Yeah, without a doubt, the budget's going to be important. Obviously, we are not allowed to be in any kind of a deficit. And so we need to do whatever we can to ensure that revenues are maintained and we find additional sources of revenue as well. The budget goes obviously to a lot of different projects, and we've got the operating budget as well as the capital budget. And without that kind of sustainability, we're going to be in crisis at different times. We need to ensure that we continue to have the reserves for any kind of emergencies. We saw what happened in Moraga with the sinkhole. We need to ensure that we continue to have that, as well as for our services and amenities. I am fully supportive of all the terrific services and amenities and programs that we have. I don't want to cut those. In fact, for me personally, the most difficult decision that I've ever had to make and vote when I was on the Arts Commission is when we had to vote to reduce the hours at the Dean Lesher Center, first to eliminate the box office hours on Monday and then to close it on Tuesday to be able to fit the budget. It's important to continue to ensure that we've got these operating revenues, and I'm fully supportive of finding additional streams for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Loella, same question.
Oh.
Would you like me to read it again, or?
No, it's
you're
budget
good.
issues, yes.
Okay.
And like a family, budget issues for the city are very important. whenever you do a budget, you make decisions. And the decisions we have made as a council is that we are going to focus on paying for current services out of the general fund, and through tight cost containment procedures and policies, we're going to try and keep the costs down as much as possible. I guess the conflict that we're going to deal with in the future is that revenues, as creative as we can be, are limited by the vote of the people and by propositions and situations that are already in place. So unlike a business, we can't just raise our prices. And costs are going to go higher faster than those revenues. So we're going to have to think hard about what the important and critical issues are to our community and make sure that we don't lose what is most important.
Thank you. Justin?
Yes, I agree. Those of you that follow local politics know that I have been very vocal about how we spend our money and the budgeting process. I've been very vocal on implementing commonsensical policies and procedures that unfortunately I have not been able to get 2 other votes for. Things like pay-go and bottoms-up budgeting during our budget process, things that I implement in my business, and I'm sure many of you have implemented in your business. Without these types of things, we have and will continue to run into the same problem that we're seeing today, which is we have a very successful downtown and a very robust tax base. However, in the not too near future, we are projecting a budget shortfall. And we as a council have done a good job of ensuring that we continue the same programs that we have today. But in the very near future, we as a council and we as a community are going to have to come together and have a logical, thoughtful discussion about what do we do in the long term, what policies do we change in the long term in order to continue the things that we enjoy in Walnut Creek.
Thank you, Justin. Bob?
All right. Budget is, of course, an essential part of what we do. We focus on it, I won't say quite every meeting, but it's always in the back of our minds whenever we have to make a decision as to what services we're going to provide and support. In my first term, we as a council created the Blue Ribbon Task Force on which Mayor Haskew served. And during the second term, we went through this fiscal sustainability process where we listened to all of the groups, talk about the things that make Walnut Creek special and how we really can't cut those services if we want to keep the city as good a quality city as we have right now. So the struggle going forward is going to continue to focus on what services we have to provide, what services we can provide, and I will add, we need to be starting to take a serious look at what other revenue streams we can create as a city so that we can continue to provide the services over the long term that our community demands of us.
Thank you, Bob. So Barbara, we'll start with you in the next round. We've all seen a great deal of residential and retail development over the last few years. However, there's been little in the way of high-paying employment added to our community. Although we're beginning to make progress in the Shadelands, our last Class A office building was built in the year 2001. Do you see this as a problem? And if so, what can be done to generate more high-paying jobs in the city of Walnut Creek?
I think what the city does is basically set the table. And we tried to do that with the changes that we made in the Shadelands. And we were asked to make more changes, but we wanted to take a small step rather than a large step because we didn't really want to completely reverse what the Shadelands has been for so many years, but we knew it was not functioning well. I think we need to continue to provide the basic services that we provide, make sure that the roads are in good quality, that our parks are clean and safe, that our community is safe, and we focused on that in a number of different ways. And I'll give one more example, which is when I was mayor, we got hit with the late night bar violence. And we spent a lot of time looking at that issue, and we ultimately adopted what's called a deemed approved ordinance. The other thing we noticed at that same time was that the restaurants were having trouble getting their conditional use permit through this planning commission because of how long it took and how expensive it was as a process. So we looked at the data that the police provided, the number of calls to our police department from restaurants that wanted to serve food and alcohol till 11:30 was very, very low. And so we created a much more accelerated process to enable that to happen. And I will add, I think that what we've done in this last year, and Mayor Haskew and Mayor Pro Tem Carlson have been working on it, is the ways to make the process of opening a business in Walnut Creek faster and more efficient. And I think that those changes will help make businesses want to come here, including high-quality employees.
Thank you, Bob.
High-paid employees. And high quality.
Justin, you're up next.
This is an interesting question because we were just talking about this last night, and I have talked on this many times. Ed Delbacaro does a very good job of explaining this. Part of the problem that we're having is exactly what you referenced. We have not had a commercial development here since 2001 or an office development here since 2001, and we do not have the adequate contiguous office space in order to entice these large-scale, especially technology companies, to come to Walnut Creek. I've said it before, it's very difficult, I'm in high tech, to find a job at an executive level here in Walnut Creek where I can live in Walnut Creek and work in Walnut Creek. And that's specifically because of this issue. And this is why I'm so encouraged about the West Downtown specific plan and the redevelopment of that area. And hopefully, I was just talking to Ethan Bennernakel about this yesterday, hopefully through the development of that specific plan and other things that we're focusing on, we'll have the large-scale contiguous space to entice these types of companies to come and relocate to Walnut Creek. We see AAA and and PMI when they were around, they relocated to Walnut Creek. This is a very attractive place for companies to come. We also have a very long tradition of these types of companies starting in Walnut Creek. Unfortunately, because of this issue, they choose to leave and they go to Pleasanton, Dublin, and in areas in which they can have affordable housing and, of course, places to house their business. Again, these types of West Downtown specific plans, the North Downtown specific plans, I think will go a long way to enticing and encouraging people to build office spaces.
Thank you, Justin. Loella.
So what I've observed in my 35 years as a CPA and been fascinated about economies and things like that there are building cycles. And one of the things that was being financed for the last couple of years has been multifamily housing. And in our general plan, we had plans to have more housing identified downtown to take advantage of walkability and those kinds of advantages. We do need to have more jobs. I think Shadelands is probably the best example of where we have an opportunity to encourage different kinds of businesses. We have some core businesses in our area, certainly medical, certainly finance. We have a lot of opportunities to build on those industries that we are already participating in, and we can do more to encourage them to come. The Shadelands P-bid, where we've addressed some issues in terms of transportation, getting from BART to a more core area of the city is a really good example of making it possible for employees to get to jobs that pay well and that add to our community. And gosh, if anybody's been to see the Sportsplex yet, oh my, if everything turns out that well, we're in good shape.
Thank you. Bob. Oh,
Kevin.
yeah, sorry.
Do I get two shots? Can I have a second time?
We didn't like that last one. I guess so. Sorry, Kevin. Go ahead.
No, this is something that's extremely important. Having commuted myself for many, many years to San Francisco on BART when BART wasn't, when it was running timely, being able to go to Microsoft and Yahoo, that was critical for me being able to even live in Walnut Creek. And of course, we see these companies that are in the South Bay, and they do have the San Francisco offshoots. We do need East Bay locations of companies like this. We have terrific retail stores here, but they typically don't pay high wages. So we need to improve the revenue stream that we're getting through the types of jobs that we can have through corporate entities. We're going to see retail taxes continue to go down because people are shopping on the internet, for example. By being able to have the locations for these corporations, that's going to make a big difference in these type of higher paying jobs. And not just the Shadelands, and not even just the West Downtown, but places like down the North Main Street area near the near Geary Road. And there's lots of opportunities there where it's near major freeways, where it's near public transportation, and allow people to not just live in Walnut Creek, but to also live outside Walnut Creek and being able to then commute into Walnut Creek. It'll take traffic off the streets and help our parking as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Justin, you'll start the next question. Downtown parking has again been identified as one of the most important issues facing our local businesses. The council has substantially raised street parking rates, expanded meter hours, and still the problem remains, according to some former shoppers that say that they'll never return to shop or dine in the downtown Walnut Creek area. What can you tell the downtown business folks in this room, if elected, you will do to improve the situation?
Well, I will say that we've already done things to attempt to resolve the situation. I think to a certain extent, it's helped. We've implemented a parking management program that many of the things that you just referenced, while I was not a huge fan of all of them, especially the parking on Sundays, I think that it has gone a long way of fixing some of the problems that we've been facing, especially around employees parking in our street parking for an extended period of time. And it has encouraged individuals to park in our garages, since we have provided free time for that to occur. And of course, wayfinding has assisted there also. We're focusing on looking to the future. We're focusing on additional parking for quite a long time. Even before I got on the council, the vision was to have an additional parking structure right there on Locust in Mount Diablo, and we're working with a individual right now in order to try to accomplish that. The last thing I'll say is that as we're focusing on additional housing in Walnut Creek, we're doing that in our downtown areas. And that is specifically around this issue to a certain extent, to encourage individuals to be able to walk to the areas without having to jump into a car. I think a combination of all these things, and I'm sure things that are going to be presented and come forth from the business community and from the public, are things that we should be looking at. I don't think anyone on the council has cut off our ears. We want to hear from the community.
Thank you. Kevin?
It reminds me of the old Yogi Berra saying, "Nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded." Obviously, parking is one of the biggest concerns. On the Transportation Commission, parking was something that we addressed all the time. In my 8 years on the commission and 3 years as chair, I was also involved with the Downtown Parking Task Force. And some of those key accomplishments were having the first hour free in the parking garages, and reducing the costs in the garages, and making available more spaces on the street. Obviously, we continue to look towards those types of opportunities, but we made thousands of spots more available on the street as well. And some of the future solutions we can look at, I'm fully supportive of an additional public downtown parking garage, but also possible solutions like 3 hours versus 2 hours in the parking meters, which allow people to not only dine downtown, but to do a little bit of shopping as well. And more ways to move employees, and better signage to provide counter availability signs to the different lots. The type of technology that's now available is something that can be used effectively to help manage that kind of parking.
Thank you, Kevin. Bob?
Like most problems that are presented to the City Council, there's no one single answer to any of them. The prior council adopted in the general plan the concept of park once and walk, and that's what the basis was for part of our approach to parking. It really was park in the parking garages and then get out and walk to where you want to go. During the last term, and as part of the parking task force, we studied how do you manage on-street and off-street parking. And we accomplished and followed a principle of a professor that you want to shoot for a target of 85% on-street occupancy, and you adjust your rates accordingly. So the other thing we did is we really depoliticized this and gave our city government the ability to set the parking meter rates at a range that best meets that 85% standard. I will close by saying that we are looking at a new parking garage, and I think that's an important component of it. We are also supporting financially the free ride trolley, and we expanded that to the Route 5. Both those are costing the city a significant amount of money, but they're taking about 1,800 people away from the automobile and onto transit in and through our downtown.
Thank you, Bob. Loella?
Thank you. Well, I was going to point out the downtown bus, and I am also going to point out that with Councilmember Silva, Councilmember, I'm even reading it, Councilmember Simmons and I helped lobby to get private parking lots available during non-business hours. So during the evenings, when you get those private parking tickets, we helped clarify the law on getting it. And there is, and Bob knows this better than I do, how many extra parking spaces because we have the private parking system?
If I get to answer that,
Yeah.
we have about 3,000 publicly owned, city-owned, and 7,000 privately owned in the downtown.
And I don't think we really truly understand our parking problem until Broadway Plaza's huge new parking structure settles in and we really get to find out what the residual problem is. What we were dealing with for the last 3 years isn't what we are going to be dealing with for the next few years, and we need to adjust accordingly.
Thank you, Loella. Next question, and we'll start with you, Loella. There has been a substantial development in Walnut Creek, and some say the city is losing its charm. Do you agree? If you could go back 10 years, what, if anything, do you believe the city council could or should have done differently?
Okay, I'm going to protest a little bit because that's really 2 questions.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to take the first one because I think that's the one that's on everybody's mind, and that is that we're overdeveloping. Is that a fair reflection? I'm clarifying the question. I hope it doesn't apply to my time.
Yes, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the development that we've seen is planned in the general plan. It is, we built in a 1% increase in population, and the general plan decided to focus on downtown as that area so that we could protect all the neighborhoods on the outside and we could take advantage of a more already urban-like situation. How do we keep our community in all of that? I think we're working very hard. Organizations like the Chamber and like Downtown Walnut Creek put on events where people can enjoy each other's company in a social situation. We have the theater, we have all of these amenities, the parks. This all helps us be a community. And like I said, we all want to like each other, and so it's working.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you. I actually will disagree with the premise that we're losing our charm. I think our charm is changing as it has over the last 70 years, from the time when you could fish in downtown Walnut Creek to the time that we have the premier shopping mall, in my view, in the East Bay. And the charm changes as the people change. And what we're also seeing, sadly for me, is the baby boomers are sort of moving on, and the millennials are coming in, and they actually want a different type of living environment, a different type of social environment. They want the more urbanized experience. And so what we have done as a city council, consistent with the general plan, is approve additional residential development in and around our downtown. That has also had the effect of preserving our single-family neighborhoods that a lot of us live in and really appreciate having that opportunity to raise our families and experience that. So I don't agree with the premise of the question.
Thank you. Kevin?
Well, I'm not sure if anybody else went to high school in Walnut Creek that's on the podium here. I went to high school here, and I used to shop at Gemco and Capwell's with my parents, and the Army-Navy surplus store, and I cruised the Main. Believe me, I know the charm that's here. And I know how important it is to also maintain and preserve the sanctity of those neighborhoods. I also know that in growth, things do change. And when Nordstrom went in, it changed the whole fabric of Walnut Creek in a very good way. We've got the best shopping and dining, not just in the East Bay, in my opinion, throughout the entire Bay Area. Sorry, San Francisco, I may have worked there, but I still believe that in Walnut Creek. And and the kind of housing that has to go downtown now, this is better housing. We can't put multifamily units with 200 people down Ignacio or down Street or in different neighborhoods. It's got to go, if it's going to go anywhere, it has to be downtown, where people can park once and then walk throughout downtown and walk to public transportation. So I like what's been done. The only thing I suppose that I would change is let's take a little bit of a breath, see what the impact is on traffic and parking and our schools before continuing to approve other units.
Thank you. Justin?
I won't reiterate what Councilmember Simmons had to say. I 100% agree with that. I think their character's changing. I think the council has done a very good job of managing that change, and I think we'll continue to do a good job of managing that change. What I will say is I think that what the community is experiencing is the adverse effects of 2008. In 2008, we couldn't pay anyone to do development in Walnut Creek, and now that things have returned, Walnut Creek is actually more successful than the communities around us in inviting and encouraging development in our community, and I think we're going to see the benefits of that. The other problem that we're seeing is, like it or love it, is height limits. Height limits have a drastic effect on the ability of developers to come in and do development in the city, and rather than seeing a couple of larger scale developments, we're seeing multitude of multi-family developments across Walnut Creek, and that is having a reaction from specific individuals in the community. I think now that things have improved, we're going to actually see a slowdown, and like Mr. Wilk has said, we're going to be able to see the effects of that development and be able to adjust accordingly, much like we have done throughout our history.
Thank you, Justin. So we're going to change our format slightly now. These questions will be answered in 1.5 minutes, and they'll be directed to specific candidates. And we'll start with Loella. As a certified public accountant, presumably you bring business understanding and fiscal expertise to the council. In the 4 years that you have served on the council, we've seen projections for city operating deficits that seem to call for a new 1/2 cent sales tax, followed by projections of a budget surplus and no need for a sales tax increase. Can you help us understand this 180-degree change?
Well, I'm struggling with the question. When we are planning out the budget for a 10-year period, which is the prudent thing to do, we look at, as I talked about before, there is a crossover between where we expect the revenues are going to be and the costs, which are going to be increasing practically faster than our revenues are going to do. We are, as Councilmember Simmons has said, we are stuck, or we are blessed with the requirement that we have to have a balanced budget. So it's important to understand that as time goes on, we are either going to have to make a choice between cutting services or finding additional revenues, hence the 1/2 cent sales tax. What this also doesn't address is there are a lot of needs in the community that we aren't putting in that general plan. It's kind of captured in the capital improvement plan, and we need to address those as well. We have the Clark Swim Center, we have sidewalks that need connecting, we have buildings that have not had material improvements for about 40 years. We have a lot of built-up stuff that we need to look to improve, and one of the ways that we would finance it is to self-finance it as well through a sales tax. And the real advantage of a sales tax is that the people who come here and visit get to pay a portion of what they enjoy while they're here.
Thank you. Bob, you've served on the Planning Commission from 2004 through 2008, and the City Council from 2008 to the current day. In those 12 years, Walnut Creek has experienced a great deal of development. Do you believe it's time to back off from the pace of development and focus more on environmental or quality of life issues?
I don't think it's an either-or question, Scott, but I'm going to go back to one of your prior questions because I wanted to add something. When you think about the charm of Walnut Creek, do you prefer the 17-space surface parking lot that used to be at Mount Diablo in Maine, or do you like that beautiful new building that provides so much beauty to our city as well as activities? So I wanted to just follow up with that, and I think the answer is pretty obvious to anyone here. Charm changes as the community changes. I think we can do both in terms of environmental protection and continuing to receive and act on development applications that come to us from developers that seek to come here. I believe that a lot of developers that want to come here come because of the environment, the quality environment, the open space, the parks that we have, and that's the reason they choose to come, and the charm of our downtown. That's the reason they choose to come here. We need to preserve that. Our voters taught us some very good lessons back in the 1970s when they initiated a referendum and said, no, you're not going to build 1,200 housing units in Shell Ridge. And they did it again with the Measure A height limit when they thought that council was building up too high. So we need to listen to our voters. We need to respect them. We also need to work to educate them in places where we as a council believe that we need to look at other development opportunities that may exist, provided it's done in a thoughtful and environmentally sound and sustained manner.
Thank you. Kevin, your website lists a large number of endorsers, including nearly 50 current or former elected or appointed officials. Does this mean you are the choice of the Walnut Creek establishment and, and that you represent a continuation of the status quo? How do you see the future, and can you identify 2 or 3 decisions made by the City Council in recent years with which you disagree?
Sure. Well, first of all, I don't think anybody is selected to or chosen to run a campaign. This has been a lead up of over a year, and anybody that I've met with over the last 12 months can certainly attest to that. And I'm proud of the endorsements that I have of 8 former mayors, people like Kathy Hicks and Gwen Regalia, Charlie Abrams and Gary Squirrell and Sue Rainey, and of 35 to 40 commissioners that are both current and former from all of our commissions, and the city treasurer, and many different nonprofits. That to me shows the commitment that I've had and the dedication over the last 20 years that I've been involved in this city. I've approved of most of what City Council has done over the last 10 or 15 years. There are some disagreements that I've had. One of them, when I was on the Transportation Commission, there was an area across from Castle Rock Park. They wanted to have no parking 24/7. Now, having been a soccer coach and coaching several teams throughout 10 to 12 years in that area, I know that people have to come there and they want to be able to watch their kids play, and grandparents want to be able to come as well. And I felt that having a parking limit as opposed to no parking at all was something that I could agree to, and the City Council approved no parking 24/7. So that's one instance that I disagreed. I also disagreed with the decision on not allowing voters to have a choice to approve a sales tax, and I can get into that more. I see that my time is up.
Thank you, Kevin. Justin, it appears that your colleagues feel that your time commitment to work, family, and city council activities, with those commitments, you don't have enough time to serve as mayor. How would you respond to that?
First, let me start off by saying that I'm not going to apologize for having a family, nor should I. I'm not going to apologize for being a full-time working individual, nor should I. I think we should be encouraging that. One of the books that I've recently read is Running from Office, and it goes into all the reasons why individuals of my age range and younger are not running for office, nor does the book, the theory behind the book is that, will they? It's because of these types of issues, the types of issues, I think the inappropriate statements that were made at the council decision when I was passed over for mayor. I will say, I have the time. I dedicate the necessary time in order to be educated. I dedicated the necessary time in order to be informed, and I designate the necessary time to show up to council meetings. I have the same attendance record that everyone, a majority of my council members have themselves. I would not be running for office again unless I was willing to dedicate the necessary time and effort to be successful. I think my voting record shows that. My principled decision-making and continued efforts to being successful at running for council and being a council member shows that I have the time and dedication necessary to be a council member, to be and to be a mayor.
Thank you, Justin. So we're going to go from a little more serious side to a little more fun, okay? And we're going to ask a series of real quick questions, 30 seconds a candidate. And we're going to start with you, Justin, and you got sort of a jump start. The first question, what book are you reading?
I shouldn't have opened my mouth. I'm usually a man of very few words, and I extended that one a little bit. But again, right as I decided to run for office, I've actually read the book before. Former Mayor Lawson actually handed it out to all the council members, and it's a very well-written book. And for those of you that are interested in why people of the younger generations are not getting involved in politics, I encourage all of you to go out there and buy it immediately. It's because of the type of thought processes that I have run into running for office and being in office that is discouraging people of the younger generation from getting involved in community service and into the public office. I encourage all of you to read it. Great read.
Thank you. Kevin, rate the last movie that you saw.
Well, I just saw Sully with my wife, and she always wanted me to be able to introduce her as my lovely wife, Jill, if I ever won an Academy Award. Well, that's not happening. I used to be an actor. I'm not going to win an Academy Award, so I would like to thank my lovely wife, Jill, for joining me to go see Sully, where I had the opportunity to watch it this last weekend. Terrific movie. I'm proud that people like Chesley Sullenberger live in not only our community, but have had the experience to bring him to what saved over 200 lives.
Thank you. Bob, what was your biggest success this week?
Just this week. I will do it this way because it's a continuing success. My wife, when I started walking as much as I walk, created and my wife is sitting there in the audience, Judy. Lovely wife, thank you. Do you have any other adjectives I should add? Okay.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Create a spreadsheet, and I keep track of all the miles I walk every day. And I'm right at the verge of crossing 1,000 miles for the year.
That's great.
And so I think that just is it's part of how I stay healthy. It's part of how I enjoy our community and our city and our neighborhoods and all the other places. And don't ask me about where I like to hike.
Thank you. And Loella, what is the model and year of the car that you drive?
I know that answer. It's an Audi TTS, and it's a 2013, and it is a joy to drive. And it turns out it was a really good investment because when I took the car in for service just recently, they offered me a 3-year lease on a brand new TT, as well as an $8,000 check back to me. They wanted that model of that year of that car so badly. Her name is Bug, and I wouldn't sell her for a...
Thank you very much. We're going to go back a little bit more to the serious side of things to finish out our prepared questions. I'm going to start with Justin. The planned BART Transit Village project will fully redevelop the surface parking lots at Walnut Creek BART, but will only create 100 additional parking spaces for BART patrons and may add congestion in the area. Do you support the planned development of almost 600 new apartments on the publicly owned BART parking lots?
Just in Walnut Creek.
Correct.
I think the council made the right decision. I was there when right before the 2012 election when they approved it, and there was absolutely no one there from the community to oppose it. Now, there was a very long-standing process that the previous council went through in order to get to that point, of course, and there was a lot of community input. But I think the effort that Walnut Creek puts in to gather community input shows that there is at least at that point, and I think it continues, that there is community support for this development. Walnut Creek has a shortage in housing stock. It's a fact. That's why we see increasing rents and increasing home prices. Unless we want to price almost everyone out of the market, we are going to have to continue to have housing stock and rental stock in Walnut Creek. While parking is an issue, traffic is an issue that we have to continue to focus on, I think the council made the right decision, and I, for one, am encouraged and looking forward to that development, not only to starting, but also the new residents that will come into Walnut Creek.
Thank you. Kevin?
Well, we have to remember that the village that's going in is also going to have its own parking for those people that live there, and they're not going to be having additional cars on the roads and ideally looking for other parking spots. So this is net increase to the parking that's already there. I mean, frankly, we could build 1,000 more spots in BART and we would still have a parking shortage at that point. People come to Walnut Creek in droves because coming from San Ramon and Danville, for example, they're going to come to Walnut Creek to park, as well as people from Walnut Creek. I do approve what the council had passed. I think that parking is always going to be at a premium, and 155 new spots is better than nothing.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you. As the only one here that actually was on the council when we approved it, I voted for it. Of course, I approve it. Our council really was only, our city was really only insisting that they replace the public parking. But I'm going to give a shout out to former mayor and current BART director Gail Murray, who absolutely insisted that we provide additional public parking at BART. And that's why we are getting additional public parking at BART. I agree with the comments of the other both Kevin and Justin, but I will add one other thing, because you asked me earlier about environmental quality and all the development going on downtown. If you believe that the urban limit line needs to be protected and you want to prevent sprawl from going out into the ranch lands and taking ranch lands and farmlands out of production, you have to decide that you're going to put density near transit, density near downtown. That is exactly the right decision for that area, and I do support the decision, and I hope that they finally start early in 2017.
Thank you, Bob. Loella?
I'm going to call you Bob now because council member Simmons doesn't work for me. So I'm going to actually also hearken back to something that Bob said, which is when he compared the parking lot that we had versus the development that is there now. This is another circumstance where we're going to improve generally the look of the city. And BART and the parking lot in the front of that on a main street at the entrance to our city isn't unattractive, but to have some buildings with some cohesion and some real life experiences and people and movement and pleasant things is going to be in addition to the overall ambiance of downtown and the city. And so I think it's an excellent thing. The other thing is we've also pointed this out as well, which is the young people and the people that we think are going to move into that are going to be less car oriented. And we're going to have Ubers and Lyfts and a whole different set of transportation choices that they'll take advantage of.
Thank you. We'll start back with you again, Loella.
Oh dear.
As residents, maybe we can't have it all. If so, which of the city's services do you see as the lowest priority on your list of priorities when budget cuts need to be made?
Oh, that's a rotten question. You know, I can't help but think, I'm going to avoid the question because I really have great faith in the community that I now represent, which is, I honestly think that we all, to our core, understand how integral all of this works. And I think that we will rise up and we will solve the problem as a community versus having to choose. You know, it's easy to pick what we've already picked the low-hanging fruit when we went through the crisis and the recession. And it's really, really, really hard to say there's any one thing that I could pick out. So I'm going to avoid the problem because I don't think it's a problem. I think our community is going to find a way to not have to cut services.
Thank you. Bob?
Okay, thank you. I'm partly going to follow the mayor's footsteps, but I think the council, with regard to some services, has really set forth a principle upon which we're going to proceed in the future, and that is, and this is with regard to how we determine our fees that we charge for particularly the recreational activities. And in essence, the concept was, if it is something that is really a true community value, we don't charge 100% of the fees. But if it's something that just benefits a small group, we actually ask them to contribute to the cost of that. And there's sort of two recent examples. One is with Larky Park and the request of the Aquanauts to deepen a part of that pool. We didn't have a large segment of the community that was going to benefit from deepening that pool. So we insisted that they contribute to that. And I think we're going to see that going forward. The second thing, and I think this goes more directly to the question, with Mayor Silva, or Mayor Haskew, Mayor Silva was mayor. I also supported giving the voters a chance to decide on a sales tax measure for the city. In 2014, we had 10 nonprofit groups come to the city council and say, please put it on the ballot, give the voters a choice. And I think we will go through that again before we make significant cuts to services.
Thank you, Bob. Kevin?
People live here and people move here because of the services and the amenities that Walnut Creek has. There is no lowest priority. It's as simple as that. I may not take advantage of everything. I would bet that nobody in this room or watching on TV takes advantage of everything. But we all take advantage of something. And what may be a priority for one isn't going to be a priority perhaps for others. However, when they start falling like dominoes, that's when there's a problem. I fully support continuing to do whatever we can to ensure that our services and amenities and programs continue unabated. And whether it's private and public partnerships, or whether it's ways to become creative with additional revenue streams, including potentially putting a vote to the public that they can then choose if that's what they want to be able to increase their sales taxes by, then that's what I support. And not doing something that would not allow that vote. I completely support the continuing of all of the services and amenities, and I actually do take offense that there is any lower priority for any of them.
Thank you. Justin?
I won't reiterate what Councilmember Simmons said, but I also want to add on top of his comments that we also have implemented a fix-it-first policy. So rather than going out there and building what we would all like to build, and of course the community would desire, we are investing our funds in the things that we already have in place. Additionally, I hope we don't get to a situation where we have to start looking at these programs and making tough decisions. We as a council, I think, need to focus on determining what we do best, just like all of you do in your businesses. If you try to do too much all at once, you don't end up doing anything well, or it costs you much more money than other individuals can do it. We need to continue to focus on costs. That's been one of my major focuses since I've been on council. And lastly, we need to focus on public-private partnerships. I was on the committee to pick the partner that we're going to work with on pools, and that has led to a very successful conclusion, that we're working on a very successful conclusion that will save us both on the operating and capital side. I think continue focus in these areas will ensure that as a community we're able to continue to provide all the services that we have grown to enjoy.
Thank you, Justin. So Kevin, we'll start with you in the next round. Infrastructure has been identified on our survey as a critical issue facing the City Council. In your mind, what is the most important infrastructure issue facing Walnut Creek, and what would you propose to do about it?
Infrastructure is something that, due to the budget and the recession, these needs have been kind of kicked down the road. And as Mr. Wedel had just said, there's this fix-it-first policy. But things like the roads and sewers and storm drains and sidewalks, these all need to be improved. Many of these are over 40, 50 years old when Walnut Creek was experiencing boom times and people were building their cities more and more. And we can thank our leaders from back in that era that had the foresight to build those. But now we have to really be able to rebuild and improve those. And so that kind of infrastructure and those costs, they do come at a cost. And the way I would look at this is that living down Ignacio, we do need to improve our roads and sewers and storm drains, and that really is our most critical priority.
Thank you. Loella?
I have had so many complaints about sidewalks this year as mayor. It's been an education. I grew up in New York, and sidewalks are normal. And when I first moved to Walnut Creek and I walked a couple of streets, I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm walking in the road. This isn't safe. So it is my goal to focus on those improvements that improve our safety and the well-being of our kids at school situations, our seniors in areas where they are going to be walking and there aren't sidewalks. The roads can be improved to make them safer, and the senior center is a pretty dog-eared old building and needs to have some attention, and it's just an example of some of the things. The theater, 25 years, it needs to be updated regularly. So we have lots of choices. No one thing that's more important than the safety and well-being of our community.
Thank you. Justin?
I don't think there is one more that's more important than the other. I think that many of them have been referenced, our roads and our sidewalks. We just passed a pedestrian master plan. A lot of that is focused on our sidewalks and the ability for individuals to walk in our community. We have lots of trails that also need focusing on. Our facilities are, like Mayor Haskew said, are 40 years old, and they are going to need some investment or replacement. Our pools are falling apart. We need to focus on those. Our parking structures, parking is very important. We need to make sure that we're investing in keeping up with these types of infrastructure costs. Otherwise, we are not going to continue to be the economic powerhouse of the East Bay. And of course, there's going to be major issues relating to the public.
Thank you. All right.
Do I get a chance?
Yes, you do, Bob. You're next. I was just looking at my...
I thought you were going to have a surprise question from me.
Yeah,
or something like that.
I do, but that's later.
right.
Yeah, you're next.
When we put together the capital budget, and our staff really puts it together, it helps us identify what our basic needs are, and when they do that, and when we approve the capital budget, we are actually making decisions as to the priorities of what needs to be fixed now. We knew that Larky Park and Clark was deteriorating. We started a aquatic needs assessment many years ago, determined that it was still a value, but we had to wait until actually last year till we had the money from various sources and multiple sources till we could make the decision to rebuild Larky Pool. Now, effectively what that was taking an aging piece of infrastructure and replacing it with something new. And I think that's a process that we will continue to follow going forward. Ignacio Valley Road is important, aquatics needs facility, or aquatic facility at Heather Farm Park. Those are all important things. And I'll use one other example real quick. We had Geary Road for a very long time was not a very usable road. And our staff went out and designed something that is bikeable, walkable, and attractive and reduces speed. And that's how our city staff has functioned very effectively to improve a specific situation involving infrastructure.
Thank you, Bob. So we have one last question before we open it up to the audience. And we'll start with you, Bob, so I won't forget you. The Chamber has been working with Shadelands property owners and the city to enact a number of significant changes in the Shadelands, such as establishing a free BART shuttle, building a new website, and modifying a number of zoning restrictions. What is your reaction to this, and what is your vision for the Shadelands? What would you like to see happen in that area over the next 5 to 10 years?
This council recognized early on in the depth of recession the issues involving the Shadelands as an underperforming business park, and made it a priority that we wanted to explore ways in which to revitalize it. So I'm delighted that the Chamber stepped up, that the council approved the P-bid that was created, that enabled the P-bid then to support making that shuttle ride to and from the Pleasant Hill BART a free ride, and that has brought business to to Walnut Creek and to the Shadelands in specific. So those are all things I'm delighted about in terms of how they have evolved to date. I would love to see the businesses and the property owners, the property owners in the Shadelands really start to work together on some other things, and I will just mention something that's a passion with me, which is converting all of that ornamental landscape and grass that is not productive, that just wastes time and money and energy and resources, and trying to figure out a way to make it something that is a productive form of edible landscaping.
Sounds good. Justin, same question.
For those of you that watch city council meetings, I don't tend to get very animated. However, this is one of the times that I was actually animated. We had an individual that was, it was referenced today, the sports arena that was set up in the old Contra Costa Times building. I got very animated about our ability to drive change in the Shadelands to conclusion. And I'm glad that working together as a council with the community and the owners out there, we're able to do things that have driven change in the area. I think we need to continue to focus on that, looking at things that the zoning and what is allowed in the area in order to encourage the businesses that are already there to be successful, and of course encourage new businesses to come into our area. Without that, we cannot have high-producing jobs, nor jobs of which individuals can live and work in Walnut Creek. I think continuing to focus on that with the chamber and our business partners and the community will only drive additional success to the Shadelands.
Thank you. Kevin?
Well, I'm glad to hear Mr. Wedel say that, because when I was on the Shadelands Task Force and went through at least 10 to 12 meetings over a period of well over a year, he had opposed the opening of the orchards there and changing it. I know a lot of people that lived in certain areas didn't want to see any kind of new development there. I live very close to that area. I am thrilled with it opening. I was proud to be part of that task force. I was concerned when Shadelands had 30% vacancy, and I'm glad to see some of the rezoning efforts that have happened and increased the occupancy rate there now and changed the dynamic of some of the businesses that are there. I would love to see a larger satellite office for a major corporation be there as well. I know that we've lost some, and be able to provide those kind of access points from public transportation and the freeway to allow even more opportunities for some of those higher paying jobs we talked about earlier on.
Thank you. Loella?
So to quote me, when we were looking at the zoning, I said, I'm really open to essentially anything that doesn't smell bad or explode. It's really important that we look at the changing world and we look at the attraction that we can offer new businesses into our community. We have an incredibly highly educated community. We have good schools around us at all levels. We have so much to offer in terms of employee possibilities, in terms of recreational possibilities. Home housing is kind of a little thorn in our side, but it is pretty much everywhere else. So it's our job as a city to make sure that we continue to make sure that there is an attractive environment to encourage businesses to come. It is like if they build it, they will come, and if they are successful, they will come.
Thank you. So we're going to go to the next round of questions, this time from the audience. So we'll see what this brings us.
I was going to run it up, but not that quick.
Start with you, Bob. Bob, you brought up Measure A. Do you believe it should be repealed?
That's a decision for the voters to make. I think if it is presented to us for consideration, we need to look at it and take a careful look at it. When you think about protecting environmental areas and you look at some of the areas around our freeway, you look at what happened with the development where Sprouts is, where the old co-op is, that was severely limited by a very, very low height limit that really treats different properties quite disparately throughout the city, and sometimes without a lot of logic other than this is what was there at that time, or this is what the zoning was at that time. Through the West Downtown process and maybe the North Downtown process, some type of public process, I think if that issue comes forward, we should take a look at it.
Thank you. So we're going to do this next question for each one of the candidates. 30 seconds or less, please. A number of communities are considering instituting a tax on sugary drinks and sodas. Is that something that you would consider for Walnut Creek? Why or why not? And we'll start with Justin.
I haven't, I mean, I've heard rumblings about this in Walnut Creek, but just like, much like what Bob said around Measure A, I think this is something that is born out of the community, and the community needs to work together in order to bring that up to the council. And if they, or either working through the community, of course, to put it on themselves, or through the council to put it on the ballot. I do want to take some of my time to just address one of the inaccuracies that one of the fellow council candidates made about my position on the shadelands. I was not opposed to the shadelands. Of course, I voted to move forward with not only the P bid, but also with the Orchards project. My problems with the Orchard project was around the process, not the project itself.
Thank you. Kevin.
Regarding the soda tax, and again, this would be something that obviously the voters would have to approve. I tend to be against taxes that are city-based only. If it's a statewide issue, I don't have an issue with us making a decision on that. But something where Walnut Creek would have a tax, but Pleasant Hill or Alamo or Concord wouldn't, makes it very difficult for some of the merchants to be able to compete effectively against competition there. So I tend to not like something that's just city-based in that instance.
Thank you. Bob?
We don't have a significant obesity problem in Walnut Creek, which is really the genesis for the initiation of the soda tax and some of the communities that have been doing it. I would not be in favor of a soda tax if the revenues went into the general fund. I would be open to looking at it if the revenues from that were dedicated. I generally don't favor that, but you know, we have a serious problem with obesity, diabetes throughout the state and throughout the U.S. And our hospitals our hospitals are overburdened with the people that need that type of specialized treatment.
Loella.
I don't drink sodas that much, so this wouldn't apply to me personally, but I think it's kind of rude to try to handle behavior with taxes, and we do it at all levels, but this is so specific and so identified to change behavior. I think we'd be better focused on making sure that we have more places for kids to run and places and ways for them to burn off energy and remind people that they should eat nutritionally.
Thank you. Loella, we'll start with you again. And how do you propose to get young people and new residents involved in Walnut Creek? 30 seconds, yes, please.
All right. First of all, I think that it's important that we as a government, as a community, recognize that as one of our important factors. Just recently, we held the Walnut Creek Showcase, and I think we made great strides in teaching people what our government does and how it operates, and I think hopefully inspired some people to look forward to getting to be part of making Walnut Creek work.
Thank you. Yes. Bob?
Okay.
Bob.
Yeah, no, I got that. I was just responding to the mayor's yes. Yeah. So the new apartment buildings and the condos that are going in downtown are bringing some residents into our city, and it is important to figure out how best to introduce them to the city and give them an option to learn about the city, and sometimes it's with technology. I will point out two things. One, we have a council member from 10 to 12 at the Sunday Farmers Market most Sundays of the year, and we're there to answer questions. We get people coming in saying, I just moved to Walnut Creek and I love it. And the second, our city staff went to the Brio recently and did a welcome to Walnut Creek type of intro, just to try to answer questions, and we will encourage them to continue that.
Kevin?
Well, in addition to what Bob and Loella had mentioned, one of the things that the younger generation is looking for is Wi-Fi and predominant Wi-Fi in areas like our downtown and parks, and those kind of things will continue to bring younger people here. In terms of a living situation, obviously we've talked about housing as well, but whether it's renters or other types of services and amenities and different programs, for example, the Lesher Center is now having different programs that cater to younger audiences. I think that's really important in helping to bring those young adults here.
Thank you.
I would say the same way that we have encouraged and invited other individuals that come to Walnut Creek to get involved. Unless you were born here, we were all new once, and we found our way around and got involved in the things that we were interested in. A shout out to Gail in the city of Walnut Creek. She does a fantastic job with PR. We have lots of mailings. In a nutshell, we need to continue to invest in our internet based presence in order to get the word out of all the great things that Walnut Creek has to offer.
Great. So we're going to go to the other end of the age spectrum. Walnut Creek has the highest percent of senior citizens in our county. Because baby boomers are retiring, the senior population is growing. What would you do on the council to advocate for seniors? So Bob, why don't we start with you? No, I'm not making any points here.
Well, I was worried when you said starting at the other age of the spectrum and went from Justin to me. I am the second most senior member in terms of years of service on the council, and I'll address it that way. You know, we did recently approve a capital budget item to rework the entry to the community service center, the senior center, to make it ADA accessible and to comply with other things. And so we will continue to do things like that to support the senior center in its operations and its activities. And they are really doing, through a lot of volunteer work, a great way of engaging the seniors in an active lifestyle. And I think the more we can get people out and working walking in our community, the more, the longer they will be able to live and enjoy everything this city has to offer.
Thank you. Justin?
To the other side of the spectrum.
Yes.
I won't touch on what Bob said because I agree with that, but I also think that we need to continue to engage with our partners. Rossmore is a major reason why we have that such a significant percentage in Walnut Creek, and continuing to work with them to make sure that they have the tools and that necessary to be successful is key to ensuring that the senior population is happy and able to live in Walnut Creek. The other thing I'll hit on is and this is one of the focus that we've had on the council, is providing the ability for individuals to age in place. There's nothing worse than the people that retire and then want to move on to a smaller place, and they don't have anywhere to live. They may not want to live in Rossmore. We need to provide opportunities through development for individuals to live where they want to live, and of course, hopefully stay in Walnut Creek.
Kevin?
Yeah. Well, my parents still live here, and so I know how important it is to reinvest in the senior center and in our senior services and ensure that we've got these facilities and programs for people of all ages, and obviously including our senior citizens. And let's not forget Rossmore. Having gone to school at Del Valle, I was stunned when I lived away for about 7 to 10 years. I came back, and the shopping center was still the same as when I went to Del Valle. And then 15, 20 years later, it's still the same. So happily, we've encouraged a developer now to reinvigorate the Safeway and have an entire upgrade on that, so the people at Rossmore do have those services available, even though whether they're retail or shopping there as well. And I fully support anything that we can do to, again, help people, not just the seniors, but people of all ages as well.
Thank you, Kevin. And Loella?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say, as a, gosh, I've got to admit it, senior, that we're actually pretty vital, and we can pretty much do what we can do for a very long time. So maybe we don't need specific help. But For those of us that do, I'm going to do a shout out right now because tomorrow there is a fundraising golf tournament at Boundary Oak put on by the Villages. It's their first opportunity, and the point of the Villages is to enable seniors to stay in their place, and we need more golfers. So anybody out there who doesn't have something to do golfing tomorrow, Boundary Oak, it's a deal. Finally, one of the things and one of the biggest issues for seniors is transportation. They lose their cars because of some issue. I'm on TransPAC, and TransPAC is the regional organization, and we have voted to increase the support for senior transportation. The buses from Rossmore, our senior club, but transportation, and so we're providing funding for senior transportation.
Thank you. Just a couple more questions. We'll start with Justin. Do you support a large-scale conference center in Walnut Creek? And if so, where and how?
I just so happen to be on the transportation bid, and this is a major topic of discussion on that. I am I don't know what you consider big, but I am in agreement with their conclusion that we need additional meeting space in Walnut Creek. This is actually an additional item that is preventing businesses from relocating here in Walnut Creek, and travelers and business travelers from coming to our community, because we have a good hotel stock, but we do not have large-scale meeting spaces for hundreds of people to get together and have a business meeting. We need to find a way, either through our partnerships or through the city or through something else, a public-private partnership, in order to find the space or build the space necessary for these businesses to meet.
Thank you. Bob, same question.
All right, thank you. I know this is a major interest of the Tourism and Business Improvement District, which in my first term the council approved. And they're doing a phenomenal job of putting a wonderful advertisements out there for the city that really put the city in a very positive light. If I don't know where, and that's not something that I would necessarily be able to figure out here, but if a developer came and said and found a way to place a conference center in our city of an appropriate size, in an appropriate location, I would certainly be open to looking at it.
Thank you. Loella.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think it's great in idea, and it's certainly a lovely aspiration, but I can't think of any area of the city that wouldn't be compromised in terms of parking, traffic, utilization of facilities by building a really, really large conference center. I think we are ideally positioned at this moment to be a niche marketer of facilities that we have, and certainly we can add to those kinds of facilities. Rooms, hotels with bigger meeting rooms would be one of them, but it would be really nice if maybe one of our neighboring cities could build that so we could house them in our hotels and have them shop in our stores.
Thank you. Kevin.
I'm definitely supportive of a conference center. Having been to probably half a dozen conferences or more every few months for most of my career, I know how important that is, and the kind of money and revenues that can be brought into a city from that. But land is the issue, of course. We need to ensure that we've got that land available. I would say that if we were going to look at an area, probably the North Main Street area would make the most sense. I know there's conversations regarding a conference center along with a concert hall and looking at the very north end of Locust for that. But we have to be able to secure the land, and working with private-public partnerships, that's what's going to be key there. And if there is a budget that's allowed and we can ensure that we've got those monies moving forward and work with private entities to fund that, I'm definitely supportive of it.
Great. Thank you very much. So, Kevin, we'll start with you on this next to last question. We are all seeing an increase in our homeless population in and around Walnut Creek. What solutions do you support to provide services to our most vulnerable citizens?
Right. Well, certainly, and homelessness is near to me. I've had a relative that's been homeless. It's a statewide problem. It's not just within Walnut Creek. And I've met with the head of the Trinity Center, Donna Colombo, and understanding a variety of factors that go into this, from the high cost of living and the unavailability of housing. I absolutely support what the Trinity Center is doing. I supported the council's vote on the armory hours during the winter. I know somebody, actually a mutual friend, that had died a couple of years ago from exposure within the city. It's not going away. And thankfully, there are people that dedicate their lives to the homeless situation that are at the Trinity Center. And there are no fix-all solutions for everything, but I support what we've done and support continuing partnerships with St. Paul's and the Trinity Center for those solutions.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, together with the Mayor Pro Tem, I sit on the Council's Housing Community Development, and we were the ones that initially reviewed the proposals involving first the winter night shelter, and we will also be involved in, as will the whole council, in reviewing the request of St. Paul's to build a large transitional housing center there. We listened very carefully to what the community had to say with regard to the Trinity Center and the winter night shelter. I'm very comfortable and confident that we made the right decision for Walnut Creek, the right decision for the community, put the appropriate terms and conditions in the approval, and then provided financial support, which they needed in order to operate it this season. So I'm very hopeful that they will be successful in operating this season. Based upon their record last year, they were able to find some permanent housing and some jobs for some of the people that entered their program, and I hope this whole community supports them as they did last year.
Thank you. Loella?
I've been asked to moderate a panel at the League of Cities Convention on homelessness, so based on our experience at Trinity. And in the preparation for that, I have heard from other cities, and there are very robust plans out there. First of all, this is not ever going to be solved in a short amount of time. Secondly, there are ways that cities are employing homeless. They're employing them to clean up streets or do other things. So I am looking forward to being able to learn about that. Homelessness isn't just a straight answer. It isn't just that one person walking up and down the street screaming obscenities. It's a whole spectrum of things. And so you need a whole spectrum of solutions. And it's really important for us to try and address it over a long period of time, and recognizing that it covers mental health, drug issues, bad luck, health issues, and it's complex, and we need to approach it with complex solutions.
Thank you. Justin?
Look, I agree. There's no, silver bullet that we can hit in order to solve this problem. I'm sure most of you have heard my very personal story on this. I have homelessness in my family for miscellaneous reasons, and that's why I was very encouraged to see the homeless shelter come up. That's something that my family supports, and I cannot speak highly enough about the individuals that donate time in order to house those individuals. I think we need to continue to work with our community partners, the Trinity Center, the Interfaith Council, in order to ensure that there's opportunities for homeless people, and that, of course, especially during the winter hours, and that we work with them to transition them to housing. We also need to work locally and with our regional partners on low-income housing. Part of the problem is that it's so expensive to live in this area that sometimes there's no other option for these individuals other than to live on the streets. And until we fix that problem, there's going to be a continuation of homelessness in our area.
Thank you. So we're going to start with our last question, and we'll start with you, Justin. More people purchase goods on the internet, so there are now more delivery trucks on our streets at increasing rates. How much do these delivery businesses contribute to the upkeep of our streets?
I thought that question was going to go a slightly different way. As much as any other business in Walnut Creek, with the new incoming internet boom, and of course with the transition from brick and mortar to people buying online, of course there's going to be more deliveries, and maybe someday even drone deliveries, which will negate this question. But they contribute just as much as any other business here in Walnut Creek.
Thank you. Kevin?
Right, I would agree with that. They don't contribute enough, but they contribute as much as anybody else does. So I'd like to take a little bit of a different tact on that and say that when people do buy goods over the internet, those sales tax monies do not go to Walnut Creek. They don't go to the local entities. And so we have to recognize that as more and more people are buying on the internet, that our sales tax dollars are not being we are not getting those. And so we need to ensure the voters have a choice in this for potentially additional sources of revenue, and whether it's a sales tax measure that people from outside Walnut Creek would help to support. And again, this is the voters of Walnut Creek, and providing them a choice in that. This is how we're going to help to make up some of that deficit that's now coming because of internet deliveries.
Thank you. Bob?
I will say that proportionate to their impact on our roads, they do not make a contribution to the city for the maintenance of those roads. Yes, they pay gasoline taxes, or pay for taxes on gasoline just the same as any other service does. But when you look at how many miles of driving they do on our roads and the deliveries that occur every day, sometimes with 2 trucks outside your house delivering to your neighbors at the same time, there is no way that they are really paying their fair share of their impact to our roads. And I think it's one of the issues we should look at.
Loella?
I'm on the League of Cities Revenue and Tax Committee as well, and one of the things we're really looking at is to figure out how to make revenues to cities impacted by the changing demographics and the changing habits of how people shop and things like that, and how to measure it. One of the things that we looked at is what happens if we change where the sales tax is charged on the person-to-person resale of used cars. And it was interesting because those of us that rely on used car sales, we got a lot more. Walnut Creek would suffer if that changes. These taxes and making everybody pay exactly the same amount or the full amount that they contribute to the costs is in theory a really good thing, but in practicality can't ever be addressed. And what we're going to try to do is address this and other reasons, other approaches as well.
Thank you, and thank you to the audience for a very robust set of questions. That was very helpful. So we're moving into our final phase here, where the candidates help us close the event with a 1-minute closing statement. So we'll start with Kevin.
Okay, well, again, at the outset, I mentioned that it's going to take dedication, experience, and commitment to help bring Walnut Creek into the future. My experience is as an 8-year transportation commissioner, 3 years as chairperson, bringing many projects forward and approving them. 6 years as an arts commissioner overseeing the Arts Vision Task Force, being on the steering committee for Yes for Walnut Creek, and currently on the Community Service Day Committee. I'm a graduate from the Citizens Institute and a graduate from the Citizens Police Academy as well. I'm a 20-year community volunteer. And I'm proud of the people who have endorsed me, from their former mayors to the commissioners, both current and former, to many of the business leaders, our most esteemed business leaders in the community, as well as many leaders of nonprofit organizations like Mount Diablo Open Space and the Library Foundation and the Arts and Friends of Civic Arts Education. My years of business and community experience have prepared me for a seat in the City Council. I look forward to the opportunity for this, and hopefully I'll have your vote. Thank you.
And Justin.
I want to thank the Chamber for putting this together. I think all of your attendance here shows the dedication, not only to the Chamber, but also of the community to the dedication of the underlying success of Walnut Creek. I think the questions that were asked today, especially both at the dais and from the community, were fantastic. And I think it shows the dedication of the 4 candidates up here, and I would hope that I expressed my dedication here on the City Council. I think over the last 4 years, I've accomplished much. Whether it's on tax issues or financial issues, or working with the rest of the council to achieve all the great things that we've been able to achieve. We've continued to provide for a safe community, and continue to all the great benefits and all the great services that Walnut Creek people have, and the business community and the community in general have grown to enjoy. I think over the next 4 years, we need to continue to focus on the financial issues, because everything comes out of finances. And I think you hear a true dichotomy between the three candidates and myself, especially around the focus on long-term costs and taxes. And I would hope that I have earned your vote, and thanks again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Justin. Bob?
Thank you, and I will repeat that and say thanks to the Chamber for hosting this, and for all of you for sitting here and sending in some pretty interesting questions. When you seek to serve on the Walnut Creek City Council, you think about what you want to accomplish. But I remember when I was first elected also thinking that we had such a legacy of great leadership that I just didn't want to screw it up. And I want to give a particular shout out to the former mayors Hicks, Murray, Regalia, Rainey, Abrams, and I know Gary Screll was here, and I also need to mention former Mayor Silva. There's also one former mayor on the panel, but that's another thing. And I also want to recognize our elected city treasurer, as those people have made significant contributions to our city. In my 8 years on the council, I believe I have demonstrated that I have the insight, the initiative, and the leadership that our community expects of its city council members. I hope you will support me as I seek re-election to a third term, and I plan to bring those same skills together with a strong work ethic, a dedication to the community, so that I can help the council make the best decisions in the long term for our city and our community. And I thank you, and I hope you will vote for me.
Thank you. And a big hand for the candidates, please.
Whoa,
Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, I'm sorry. I knew I'd do that. I was so anxious to stay by the clock. Sorry.
It helps, because now I'm going to get the sympathy vote. Okay?
Yes, you're ready.
I'm ready.
It's all
Okay.
yours.
So I decided to run for city council because Walnut Creek is actually a passion of mine. I grew up in New York City, and it is the city by which I hold every other city for comparison. And there are some bad parts of New York City, I grant you, but in terms of culture, in terms of diversity, in terms of ideas, in terms of education, it is an amazing place. This is the place that I found, and pardon me, because this is the one thing I really am passionate about. This is the one city that I think holds a candle to it and yet retains those things that we value as Americans, which is community and support and knowing our neighbor. And so it is my deep desire to continue to serve this community to the best of my ability. It's an amazing place, and I am so grateful to have had the first 4 years, and I owe you the next 4 years, because I'll be that much smarter.
All right, did I miss anybody? So, in closing, as I was sitting here thinking about our candidates, and boy, are we fortunate to have 4 really strong people to represent our community. I just wish, one of them was running for president. then we'd really be on to something. So, again, thank you all for coming, and another round of applause for 4 outstanding candidates.